All right, thanks, Devin. So hi, everybody. My name is Peter Gillen, and I work on platform product marketing here at Zendesk. I'm really excited to be here with the community. This is my third event, and I really love being here and talking with you, sharing best practices. And so let's just dive right in. We're going to start with a quick refresher on platform, and then we're going to introduce our deep dive topics for today. So in a nutshell, platform is what lets you extend and customize your out-of-the-box Zendesk experience to meet your unique needs. And one of the great things about platform is that it's open. So it fits with the technology investments you've already made, the tools you already have, and the development languages that you already use. There are no walled gardens, no proprietary languages. It's very open. The platform also makes it really easy to get up and running quickly with tools for everybody in your organization, from agents to admins to developers. Today, we're going to be diving into platform features that help your team keep up with some key trends that we're seeing. And so what we're seeing really is that companies are still struggling to adapt service to fit their business. There are a lot of reasons for this, but one of them is that agents just don't always have easy access to the context that they need to solve customer problems. So for example, easy access to customer orders or product catalogs or invoices. And when agents don't have that context at their fingertips, say because it's spread across multiple systems, they end up wasting time searching for it. Customers end up repeating themselves, and service ultimately feels kind of slow and impersonal. Another reason that companies are struggling to adapt service is they don't always feel comfortable doing it. In fact, we saw in one of our recent CX trends reports that only 16% of organizations really feel confident modifying their service solution. This is a big problem, but it makes a lot of sense when it can be to make a mistake when you're trying to update a complex workflow or an integration. And so the result is that companies just don't fully adapt service to fit their needs. We can go on to the next slide. So the new platform features we're going to be diving into today are custom objects with triggers and sandbox deployed at production. Both of these features are going to help your team because they're going to give you a safe tool to test out changes before pushing them live. And they're also going to make it easier for agents to access and take action on that key context. We're also going to be answering questions, as Devin mentioned, about other areas of platform that were announced at Relate, including compliance, analytics, and more. And I also want to note that we do have additional community events coming later this year, and we're going to go deeper in some of the areas we don't go as deep on today, including security and compliance. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Ashwin and Bailey.
All right. Thank you so much, Peter. Hey, everyone. First of all, thank you so much for being great customers of Zendesk. And thank you for showing interest in the awesome features that we're launching in the Zendesk platform. I'm Ashwin Raju, Senior Product Manager of Custom Data. And joining me is the very awesome Bailey Whitaker, Senior Product Manager for Triggers and Automation. And we're excited to share more details about the new custom objects and all the capabilities that we've built around custom objects and how it works with triggers. During the Agent Workspace deep dive, we gave you a sneak peek of the agent custom objects and what it can do for your customers. And in this event, we want to go further into the world of custom objects and help you understand how powerful this feature can be. Before we start off, let me give you a quick refresher of what custom objects is. Zendesk comes natively with 3 standard objects. They are your tickets, your users, and your organizations. Tickets enable you to capture the details of the customer request. Users captures the customer's profile details, and organizations help you capture your customer organization details. One of the key things that we have observed is that for agents to solve a customer request, a lot more information is required. This could be your order information, your policy information, products, contracts, etc. Data that is specific to your business. This information typically lives outside of Zendesk in other systems, and agents are constantly swiveling between multiple tools and searching for information. This leads to slow and impersonal service with low agent productivity. And it also leads to customers repeating themselves at the same time. This need led to the birth of custom objects. Custom objects is a capability for you to extend Zendesk data model and bring in your business data into Zendesk. This helps your agents get all the information they need to solve a ticket right within the agent workspace. And you will also have the ability to utilize this data in your triggers to streamline your automation, streamline and automate your business processes. And last but not the least, you'll also be able to report on this data to gain valuable insights. With the new custom objects, you can do all this without writing a single line of code. And don't just take my word for it. Why don't we show you how easy it is to set the new custom objects and how powerful it can be? It's demo time. But before I start off with the demo, let me just set some context for the demo. Sandy Shores is an online retailer company specializing in beachwear. Like any other e-commerce company, one of the most common customer requests that come in is, where is my order? Agents at Sandy Shore currently swivel between Zendesk and their order management system to get the full context of the order and respond back to the customer. Jane, the admin working with Sandy Shore, wants to reduce the swivel chair motion between these two systems and bring in their order information into Zendesk. She also wants to reduce the wait time for her VIP customers by assigning tickets with high-value orders to a specialized group. To achieve this, she has 3 steps. 1, she has to create a custom object called order in Zendesk. 2, once she has created the order object and brought in their order information, she wants to surface that information in a ticket.
And then step 3, she wants to create a trigger to take action on the ticket based on the associated order. Now we will show you how easy it is to set up the new custom objects and create triggers on your custom data right in Zendesk. So first, Ashwin will walk you through steps 1 and 2 on how to create a custom object and surface it in a ticket. Then I'll show you how to create triggers using data from those custom objects. So back to Ashwin to kick off the demo.
What I would do, where I would start with, is under objects and rules. So all the features that we have built for the new custom objects will be available in the objects tab within the custom objects section. Legacy objects and the relationship tab would be only visible, that's only available for your legacy custom objects that you've created in the past. So let's start with creating the object. So I click on create object and I want to create an order object. So I want to create an order. I define a plural name over here. And I define a key, which is how you would identify this as a unique object. And it'll be useful when you're using APIs to update this object. So I've created the object. So now that the object is created, the next step for me is to create fields. You will see that there is a name field that is already present. And you want the name field to be something that your agents can recognize the order. And in this case, let's say that it is an order ID that you want to capture in the name field. Let's add a few more fields. So let me start off with the first field, decimal field called amount. Add a drop-down field called status. One second, just adding the stuff up. All right, and now I've created the status field. Now let me add one more field called address, because an order needs to have an address. So I've created the address now, and let's create the last field for this object. Each order would be assigned to an individual customer. So let me create a lookup field called ordered by. And what I want this field to have is the customer who has initiated this order. So I don't want all customers to have this. So within user, I'm adding a new filter called role is end user. I don't want all my users. I just want my end users to have the have this field be populated by. So now that I've created the object, my next step is to define permissions. Again, just wanted to call out, this is not a feature that we have rolled out yet, but we were so excited about this feature that we wanted to showcase it as part of this demo. So this feature is going to come out in the first half of August, but just wanted to give you a sneak peek. So with permissions, you would be able to define individual permissions for each of the roles that you have. So effectively, let's say I want all my advisors to just view the order, and I want all my team leads to rather view, edit, and delete an order. Right? So these are permissions that you can set at an object level for each custom role. Now that I've created the object, let's go into the creation of individual orders. So now I click, let me just show this to you, right? So under actions, you have this thing called view records. You click over there, you will get to the agent experience for this order. And if you see on the left-hand panel, you will see a new button, which is specific to custom objects. And you will see all the objects that you've created on the left panel and all the records, all the data of each of these objects on the right-hand side. So now I'm going to create a new order. So I'm going to say order 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And it is, let's say, $1,200. And the status is delivered. And address is 1, 2, 3, 4 Street. And I want this order, like this order was placed by Brian Williams. So the order has been created now. So it's as simple as doing this. So your order is created. You will see all the orders that I've created right over here. And more importantly, when you go to Brian's profile, I will see the orders that Brian had initiated as well, right within the Agent Workspace. And if you notice, I didn't write a single line of code for any of this. I just created the object in the admin experience. Now, that is the end of my step 1. I've created an order object, I have added data into that order object, and I have associated with a customer. Now, the next step for Jane is to associate the object with to a ticket, or surface this object to a ticket. So for that, I'm going into the ticket fields. I'm adding a new field called associated order or order lookup. And I'm saying, hey, this when I'm creating a ticket, I need to ensure that this ticket needs to point to an order object. So let me just make it easier, right? So I am creating a ticket field, which is a lookup field pointing to the order object. Now my next step is to add this lookup field to a ticket form. So I've already created a ticket form called where is my order. And the only thing I need to do is to pull this order and put this into the ticket form. And if you go back to the agent experience, let me just refresh this. I create a new ticket. I have this field called order, and I should be able to search for an individual order right over here. Again, no single line of code that I've written. So by now, Jane has completed step 1 and step 2. So let me stop sharing my screen and pass it on to Bailey to show how Jane can achieve step 3.
Now that Ashwin has created a lookup field on the ticket pointing to a custom object, order, we can move on to step 3, where you can use the fields from that related order in your trigger conditions. So let's say Brian creates a request to expedite his order. Brian is a VIP customer who regularly shops with Sandy Shores. He recently made an order that we saw Ashwin create the record for for over $1,000. Sandy Shores wants to make sure that a request from a customer like Brian comes in and gets routed directly to the VIP team. She sets up a trigger with the conditions: order amount is greater than $1,000 and the requester is considered a VIP. So let's do that now. We'll name the trigger VIP request. We'll put it in the VIP needs category. And then when we're building our conditions, we're looking at the order amount is greater than 1,000. And the requester is a VIP customer. As an action, we want to assign this request to the VIP request group. We create the trigger successfully, and let's head back over to the request we started with. So we have Brian requesting to expedite his order. The order record is the lookup field on the ticket. We submit this as new. You can see that that trigger has run and the assignment of this ticket is now the VIP request group. And you can check to verify that that trigger ran by going into the events log and you can see the trigger. The ability to use additional fields that aren't directly in the ticket can solve use cases where you have custom data points that you want to include in workflows, but don't necessarily want to overcrowd your ticket with all that information as custom ticket fields. It also enables you to create tailored workflows based on data that is most relevant to your business. There's a few other new trigger capabilities we enabled for custom objects that we'll discuss in more detail in a few minutes. But for now, that's the end of the demo.
Custom objects is a powerful feature that could transform your agent experience. To leverage the capabilities that it offers, you'd want to plan on what objects you build and how you surface that into your tickets, users, and organizations. And that's not a simple exercise. These tips that I'm going to give you are going to help you with that planning process before you even create objects. First one, use custom objects to store data that your agents need the most. We don't recommend you to bring in all your business data into Zendesk, and that would generally be an overkill based on depending on the size of your company. You want to bring in that data that your agents need to get full context of the customer and the request. It could be a customer contract, it could be your order information, it could be your product catalog, it could be your asset data. It could be very specific to what your business needs are. So for that, your first step is to identify the right use case that could help your agents deliver excellent customer service. Once you have that information, once the information, give me 1 second, sorry. One thing that you'd have to do is to, once you have that information in hand, you want to assess whether custom objects is the right solution for you. You have two choices within Zendesk. One is to create a sidebar app. That's one thing that a lot of our customers have been creating, just to create a sidebar app to surface that information. Creating a sidebar app would require API integrations. It would require developer requirements, and you would also need have limited changes that you can make on this, or you'll have to depend on developers to make the changes on the sidebar app. And most importantly, the information that you see on the sidebar app cannot actually be used on triggers, business rules, and reporting unless you move it to a ticket. A sidebar app might be apt for data that changes every second, and you don't really need to use it in your triggers and reporting. Example would be change logs for a shipment. Right? That's a lot of data that you don't want to bring into Zendesk, and you don't really have a need for using it in your triggers and reports. A custom object, on the other hand, would be apt for either slow-moving data, like your product catalog or your assets, or it could be useful for your fast-moving data, like your orders, where you want to use it on your triggers and reports. So that's point number one. By the end of point number one, you would have identified the right use case for custom objects. So the next step is to visualize your data and relationships. The simplest trick that I would recommend is to think of custom objects like a spreadsheet. When you create an object, you're creating a new spreadsheet. Once you've done it, you can add columns to that spreadsheet. These are your fields inside custom objects. And the next step is to add rows to that spreadsheet. And these are your custom object records or the data that you bring into the custom object. Try to visualize a sample of your data in a spreadsheet like you're seeing on the right-hand side of the slide. And in this example, I'm creating a custom object for capturing rental properties, and I've got 3 columns. I've got the name column, I've got the address, I've got the property. And the name field over there is something that you want your agents to quickly reference the record that you're looking for. So if I want to look for Royal Heights apartment 203, I should be able to just type in Royal Heights apartment 203 and get the information. So that field should be something that your agents can easily find the record that they're looking for. And then you have address, you've got property manager. And the last point around property manager is the fact that it is a looker field pointing to a user. And the advantage of using looker fields is the fact that once you use that, you would you go to to John Doe's record, and you will see the first 2 rental properties displayed over there. And that brings me to my third point. Leverage looker fields to surface your business data and tickets, users, and organizations. Looker fields is a powerful capability which enables you to build and visualize relationship between your data. This will not only enable your agents to associate your business data to your tickets, but it will also open up opportunities for you to create triggers and rules around your data. And will also enable you to build better reports using your business data. This is a powerful way to leverage custom objects to the fullest. Now let me pass it on to Bailey to talk about some of the tips and tricks that she has around using triggers on custom objects. Bailey, off to you.
Okay, at least I'm not responsible for sharing my screen for this one, guys. Sorry about that. From the triggers perspective, we have opened up that can be very powerful tools for your workflows. So the first one, you can simplify workflows with indirect stakeholders or approvers. So now you can assign a ticket to a user who is not directly involved in that ticket. The ability to include users and workflows who are not directly involved in the request can be used for things like approvals, cross-functional teams, or even project management. Think of this as needing someone's input, but they don't need to be involved in the entire process. And then the second one that we've enabled is sharing updates with stakeholders who aren't directly involved in a ticket. So now you can email a user related to a ticket through a relationship with a custom object. So think of this as an order shipment contact, where that order is actually related to the ticket. So the ability to email a user not directly involved in the ticket opens up a new level of communication and collaboration through triggers. And now we'll move on to our next feature, Sandbox Deploy to Production.
Hello, everyone. My name is Chris Soss, Senior Product Manager working on our Sandbox product here at Zendesk. I'm excited to be part of this community event and share a little bit about sandboxes and what the team's been working on. If you haven't explored premium sandboxes yet, they're an invaluable change management tool that gives you a testing environment closely resembling your live or production Zendesk setup, including your data and configuration. With sandboxes, you have a secure space to test out changes and optimizations without putting agents, customers, or employees at risk. You can test out workflows, integrations, macros, and other configuration while avoiding potential disruptions to your live environment. And for training, sandboxes serve as an excellent learning environment for new agents. They'll quickly feel comfortable and confident with Zendesk before engaging with your customers, ensuring a fast and smooth onboarding process. You can also use Sandbox to explore and try out new features like Zendesk AI. Today, I'm going to demonstrate how to create a premium sandbox, create a brand new trigger, and show off an exciting new feature, Sandbox Deploy to Production. With Deploy to Production, you can manage change even faster and more safely by automatically deploying triggers created in your sandbox to your live environment. We're going to first jump into Admin Center and navigate to the Sandbox overview under the Account category. Next, we're going to create a new sandbox by clicking Create Sandbox. Let's start by giving our new sandbox a name. I'm going to call this one Chris's Superb Sandbox. Next, we need to choose what type of sandbox to set up. Let me briefly explain the differences and what each of these options entail. A standard sandbox mirrors a fresh Zendesk account in terms of looks and behavior. No data is copied from your production account. It's perfect for testing new apps or testing out features. A standard sandbox is included with Support Enterprise. The first type of premium sandbox we offer is the Premium Sandbox Metadata. This option copies configurations from your production account to the sandbox, such as triggers, automations, ticket fields, brands, groups, and more, but without the ticket data. Metadata sandboxes are ideal for testing new configurations or tweaking existing workflows where you don't need existing tickets or existing ticket data. They also provide an excellent environment for agent training or onboarding. Lastly, we have partial and production options of premium sandboxes. These sandboxes will have all of your configuration just like metadata sandboxes, but also replicates tickets, ticket data, and the associated end user data. With the premium partial sandbox, you can replicate up to 10,000 non-closed tickets. And with the premium full production sandbox, you can replicate up to 100,000 non-closed tickets. These sandboxes are useful when you need a near identical copy of your production account with real data, tickets, and end users. It's great for testing seasonal traffic workflows or bulk actions like a new product launch to assess the impacts of changes to triggers, automations, views, and more. Suite Enterprise includes one standard sandbox and one partial premium sandbox. Suite Enterprise Plus includes one standard sandbox and one full production premium sandbox. Any enterprise plan can purchase additional sandboxes as an add-on. For today's demo, I'm going to create a metadata sandbox. This will generate a new account with all of my existing triggers added to the sandbox. Once we've hit create, the sandbox will be created in the background. Depending on how much configuration data or ticket data we've selected to be replicated, the creation time can vary. We can check in on its progress on this page. We'll also receive an email to notify us when the sandbox has been created, so we can get on with other things while we wait for it to happen. Now that the sandbox has been created, let's jump into it and take a look around. The sandbox is like any other Zendesk instance, so we'll need to sign in. Switch to the agent login page and enter my usual admin credentials here. Now we're into our brand new sandbox. You can always identify if you're in a sandbox and which sandbox you're in by checking out the orange banner at the top of the page. Every page in your sandbox has this bright banner, so it's easy to stay clear on whether you're in your sandbox or live environment. You'll also note that the sandbox has a new unique subdomain that is generated off the production one. This is the subdomain you'll need to use if you want to test any API integrations. For this demo, we're going to create a brand new trigger in the sandbox before deploying it to production. Workflows built with triggers can become pretty complex, and it can be easy to make a mistake when making changes. That's why using a sandbox to test out any workflow changes can be so helpful and save your team headaches and possibly customer frustration. Zendesk sandboxes have always supported trigger testing, but in the past I would have needed to recreate the same trigger with all the conditions and actions in production after it's been created in the sandbox. This process could have been prone to errors, copy-paste problems, or missing fields. The new deploy to production feature solves this by deploying triggers straight from your sandbox to your live environment. As an added safety feature, triggers you deploy will automatically be validated to ensure that any dependencies involved with the trigger in the sandbox also exist in production, so that the trigger works as it should without any unexpected consequences. The feature that I'm going to demonstrate is a sneak peek, so it's not quite finished yet. I'm going to go ahead and build a trigger. Now that I've built my trigger and tested it through the magic of editing, I want to deploy it to my production account. To deploy this trigger, we're going to jump over to our production account in the other tab and navigate to the deployment page under Sandboxes in Admin Center. Deployment is a three-step process. It starts with selecting the trigger, matching any dependencies on the trigger if required, and then a final review step before the changes go live. We're going to select the sandbox we want to deploy the trigger from. In this case, it's Chris's Superb Sandbox that we created before. We'll now be presented with a list of the triggers in the sandbox that are available to deploy. Let's select the trigger we just created and hit Next. The next screen shows us that we don't need to map any dependencies, since everything this trigger relies on already exists in production. If we didn't, we just have to make sure things like ticket fields that the trigger relies on in the sandbox also exist in production. We're going to proceed to the final review step. We'll now be asked for confirmation and shown additional information about this deployment, including a list of the dependencies that the trigger relies on, with links out to each in case we want to validate them. We also have a confirmation message of what this deployment will do. Either it'll overwrite an existing trigger or create a new one. In this case, it's a new trigger, so it shows that it will create a new trigger in production. Since everything's looking good, we're going to go ahead and hit that deploy button. We receive a confirmation message that the deployment was successful, and we have a handy link to now view the trigger in production. Now we see that the trigger in production is exactly matching the one in the sandbox, all with one click. As you can see, deployment can really streamline the change management process while also making it more safe and predictable, ultimately making it easier and faster for your team to continually optimize service experiences. I hope you're just as excited about this feature as we are. Finally, I'm going to talk through some tips and best practices when using premium sandboxes to make changes to ensure they can be done safely and easily for your account. Plan, communicate, and collaborate on changes with stakeholders. Talk through your plan with the team, clearly defining roles, timelines, and expected outcomes. Zendesk Sandbox is your friend. Work together on changes and keep everyone in the loop throughout. Tackle changes in small, manageable chunks. Sandboxes help you test and validate those mini milestones, ensuring smooth sailing without any risks. Plus, you'll find troubleshooting easier when needed. Document the changes that you've made in your sandbox. Make note of every change in the sandbox, including who, what, and when. Understanding the impact of changes is crucial, and having a clear trail back to the previous state comes in handy for those just-in-case scenarios. A quick tip: snap a screenshot for fast documentation and easy reference later. Be prepared with a rollback plan and test it to make sure it all works. In case things go haywire, you'll have a safe escape. Some things to consider adding are what to change, who to notify, and how to validate that the old version is working. And finally, roll out changes during quiet periods. Avoid causing hiccups for agents during peak customer service hours. Schedule changes during quieter periods so you don't hinder their ability to help customers when it matters most. Thank you. Now on to everyone's favorite part, the Q&A.
All right. Well, now it's time for our Q&A. I see that we have a few people asking questions in normal chat. Really like the questions. Keep them coming. We want to answer as many as possible today. But we do have people working in our Q&A chat, and they're most likely going to miss your question if you don't answer it there. So please, if you could, keep them in that section so that way we can go ahead and address them. But without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into this Q&A with our first question. And I believe this one's for you, Ashwin. And that is, can you share more use cases for custom objects? And I noticed that we had a couple people ask this same question in a different way in our Q&A chat as well. So hopefully we can get an answer for everybody at once.
Makes sense. All right, thank you so much, Dan. Again, we see custom objects being utilized in 4 categories of use cases. So before I categorize, I just wanted to call out that your business data and your business is unique. And what we're offering from custom objects is kind of a canvas for you to store and utilize that business data that you're bringing. So having said that, I want to cover 4 of the common category of use cases that we generally get, see customers put into custom objects. One is product catalog and configuration management. Every customer has an ever-changing catalog of products and services, each with their own set of details. So storing a product catalog in custom objects makes it easy for you to associate products to a ticket, order, user, etc., and make it easy for you to build product-specific workflows. I've also seen a lot of customers store their end customers' device and system configurations within custom objects, and then associate them to users and organizations. So when a customer calls in, your agent will know whether the customer has signed up for a premium support or not, or they have additional services that they have registered for or not. All of that stuff is visible for the agent. So the first category is product catalog and configuration management. Second category of use cases are asset and device management. Custom objects can be super helpful in your internal ITSM use, them to employees. You can also build some basic approval processes that can help you achieve a better customer or employee experience in that case. Third one is order management and return processing. You can also bring in your order information into Zendesk and use it to streamline your processes. So for example, a very well-known apparel company has surfaced their order and payment information into Zendesk, and within custom objects, thereby reducing the call handling time by an average of 2 minutes per call. And the fourth category is like a catch-all category, which is your custom use cases. So the beauty of custom objects is that the possibilities are endless and they're not limited to certain use cases. I've seen use cases where a veterinary clinic brought in their pet information into custom objects. And a large property management company has done the same thing for properties. In fact, there are a lot of apps today that use custom objects to store their data in the background within Zendesk itself. So again, these are some of the use cases that I've seen, but I'd love to hear more use cases coming out from this group.
Thanks, Ashwin. I believe the next question is yours as well. And that is, what is the process for bringing data into custom objects? And again, this is another question that we're getting a lot of the same type of question on in Q&A. So hopefully we can elaborate more on this for everybody.
Oh, absolutely. Right. So like the question is, hey, I've created my custom object, or in the example that I showed, I've created the order object. How do I bring in that order information, or how do I bring in the data into custom object? You have three choices. One is your agents can manually create it within Zendesk. So that's what I showed on that page, and it might be useful wherein you're capturing your customer notes, or fraud notes, or wherein you're capturing something that your agents are entering into the system, like their task list or something of that sort. Right? You can manually create that using the agent experience with the new custom objects. Point number one. Point number two, we'll have a huge suite, at least a whole suite of APIs. Create, edit, delete, and read custom object records. And we'll also be including the ability to create multiple records using one API call. So bulk creation is also something that we are considering in the future. Third one, we'll also be enabling the ability to bulk CSV upload data into custom objects. So we'll have a beta version of the CSV bulk upload functionality as we go GA in Q3, and that is also one way of uploading your data into custom objects. So those are the three choices that you will have this year. But going forward, some of the things that we are also considering are to make your integrations much easier and more native. So I saw a question around Salesforce integration, and that's also something, some of the things that we are considering in the future. I don't have a timeline on that yet, but then again, we are actively looking at how do we build some of these native capabilities to bring in data into custom objects.
Awesome. Thanks, Ashwin. Our next question actually is not for you, so you can take a break. This one's for Peter, and it is, what can I test in a sandbox? Very kind of generic and open question, but we did want to go ahead and address it.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And so the way to think about it is that a sandbox is the same as any account. So anything that you can do in an account, you can do in a sandbox. So for example, you can use your sandbox to test and fine-tune new templates and branding. You could test out bots that you want to set up. You could test out new features before rolling them out to your team, like advanced AI. So as long as it's present within your production environment, you can test it in your sandbox. We can share some resources for getting started with sandboxes if you're new to them, but that's a great question.
Awesome. So our next question is going to be for you as well, Peter, or not you as well, you again. But how does pushing changes from sandbox to production work, and how granular does it get, and when will it be available? So this is a great question, and I've seen some questions come up in the chat around benefit versus features, which I believe was around this feature. So I'll touch on that as well. So basically, pushing changes from sandbox works by updating the configuration in your live environment based on the specific changes that you made and deployed from your sandbox. With the first release on this, it's going to be changes that you made to trigger configurations. So as Chris touched on this process, to dive a little bit deeper into it, and also address one of the questions around dependency mapping, this includes automatic validation before deployment to make sure that the change is deployed safely without any errors. So the process works through dependency mapping. And basically, this is a step-by-step process in Admin Center that's going to guide you through identifying and addressing
any dependencies between the sandbox and your production environment. So for example, if you set up a trigger in your sandbox and that trigger relies on a ticket field that's in your sandbox, that ticket field would be a dependency because you need it for the trigger to work. So if that ticket field dependency is in your sandbox, but it's not in your production environment, that trigger wouldn't work if you tried to deploy it. So with this feature, you're going to be notified of that issue with the dependency, and then you could either update the trigger or add the missing dependency to your production environment. And so currently, this feature has been in beta, and this has been one area that the team has been working to improve and iron out issues. So when we go GA, which will be in Q3, you'll be able to handle that dependency mapping process really easily and seamlessly. In terms of granularity, you're going to be able to push individual configurations, for example, individual triggers over. There was a question that came up that was around being able to push larger amounts of changes over. And so that is something that the team will also be working on after we've enabled the ability to push individual configurations of different types, triggers, automations, and so on. So stay tuned for that. And then we're going to be in releasing the ability to deploy additional configuration types with automations, and we'll move on to other types. And so that will be coming after Q3, but not too far after. So again, stay tuned. There's going to be a lot of improvements in this area to sandboxes very quickly over the coming quarters. So very exciting. And thanks for the question. Also, before I forget, on benefits, the real big benefit here with deploy to production is that it makes the change management process much faster and safer. So you don't have to manually copy changes over that you've tested out environment, where say you have your sandbox up, you have your live environment, you've got triggers you've set up in your sandbox, and you're going to go and copy those changes over manually to your live environment. You don't have. It's much less likely that you're going to make a mistake in making the changes to production, and you're going to be able to do it much faster. So it's really about speed and safety.
All right, thanks, Peter. By the way, we did get a little clarification on that one question, and it was the benefit of using objects versus the custom field. I didn't know if you wanted to go ahead and address that first now real quick before moving on.
Oh, Ashwin, do you want to jump in there?
Yeah, I can. So I was just typing that answer right now. So effectively, think of, I just wanted to call out the difference between custom fields and custom objects, right? So you have a user, you want to capture the attributes of a user, and the attribute doesn't live independently. You want to create a custom field. So for example, let's say employee salary, right? So when you're, or even let's say employee designation, right? So when you're creating like an Excel sheet, you won't create a separate sheet altogether just to capture the employee's designation or employee salary, right? So you would add it as a column inside the user's sheet that you already have, right? So that's where you use custom fields. Now, where you use custom objects is wherein you're trying to capture data that makes sense independently. So for example, let's say a contract associated with the employee. You'll have multiple fields within that contract, and a contract in itself, ideally, you would want to create a separate sheet or a separate custom object. Example, order, right? So order is a separate entity in itself, and you want to capture that in a separate sheet or a separate custom object. So that's where you use custom objects. So any attributes that you have which are strongly linked to one, either the ticket, user, or organization, you generally want to create a custom field. But for all other scenarios wherein you want to capture something very separate, which will have like multiple attributes associated with it, and it will make sense independently, that's when you create a custom object.
Awesome. Let's move on to our next question. And this one also is for you, Ashwin. When a sandbox is created, will it adopt our current ecosystem, or does it need to be set up from scratch? Or actually, no, this is for you, Peter. My apologies for the mix-up.
Oh, no worries. Yeah, this is a great question, and it's a simple one. So the sandbox is going to reflect your current production environment, and it's specifically going to include the data and the configurations that were copied over from production to your sandbox when you set it up based on the type of sandbox that you have. So as Chris mentioned, there are different types of sandboxes, and those different types will allow you to copy over more or less data, and then to copy over configurations or just data. So short answer is you are not going to need to set the sandbox up from scratch. It'll adopt your current production environment.
Awesome. All right. So our next question then, can you share advice on how to utilize custom objects and apps to make Zendesk a bit more bespoke? I thank you for using the word bespoke. I love when people do that. Fantastic. And this is for you, Ashwin.
All right. So as I mentioned earlier, right, a custom object is like a canvas. You can bring in any data that you want. And there were 4 use cases that we talked about, but I've seen a lot of app creators or developers who are actually using custom objects to store the data that they want to store so that they can surface it in their apps. So example, there was an app that was created to capture the discount coupons that will be given to customers who had a bad experience when they get to a store. Those are like, what the discount coupon within the custom object and surface it into the app, and also use it to associate the discount coupon that they've assigned to a customer to the actual customer profile itself. So those are things that I've seen customers use custom objects for, at least developers use custom objects for. And again, keep in mind that think of custom objects as you can put in your data and surface that data within your apps, within your agent workspace, all of that good stuff. So that's my short and sweet answer. You can definitely use custom objects to improve your app experience.
Awesome. Our next question, I believe, is for Bailey, and that is, what are the best practices for clean and easy workflow management? I feel like this question came up multiple times in the Q&A, so thanks everyone for submitting this one.
Yeah, so from a triggers perspective, there are a few best practices. The first one I'd say is creating a naming convention and sticking with it. So when you're editing a trigger, that's really the only time that you can see the conditions in action. So it's really helpful to create a name that shows the function of the trigger, like maybe you name it set priority to urgent. And then second, the order of your triggers definitely matters. So think about the end result and the steps that you need to get there. In general, you'll want to start with updating ticket values, followed by ticket assignments, and then notifications. And then third, you should go from specific to more general in your list of triggers. So this will prevent catch-all triggers from firing over your more specific ones. And then lastly, the simpler your triggers are, the easier they are to maintain. I highly recommend reviewing your triggers on a regular basis to help reduce errors or any outdated workflows that maybe someone else created. If you have multiple admins, that'll really help keep your workflows clean and hopefully easy to manage.
All right, thanks, Bailey. Our next question is actually going to be for you, Bailey, and Ashwin, and that is, how can Zendesk platform help increase my agent's productivity and resolution time?
Yeah, another great question. So there are quite a few ways that the platform can help with this: automation, integration, data customization. Those are specific platform areas that can help. Triggers and automations have a number of productivity benefits. So you can automate ticket routing so your agents only see relevant requests. You can escalate priority requests so that the most urgent ones get attention first. You can customize notifications so the right people get the right information at the right time. You can automate follow-ups to save time on post-resolution communication. You can create time-based actions to ensure tickets don't get overlooked. And you can automate status and field updates so that your agents always have the right information. All of these benefits will boost time to resolution and enable your agents to focus on requests that require the most attention or personal touch.
I can add a little more color to that from a custom object standpoint, which is like the example that we showed, right? So you brought in your order information into tickets, right? I want to see the details of my, like, the reason why I brought in the order information into tickets is because I don't want to go to another system to get information from that other order management system that I have. I don't want to swivel between multiple different screens, and that will affect my productivity. Now, as an agent, I want a full view, at least a basic view of this order within that ticket user interface as well. One of the capabilities that we're building this year is the ability for you to get a preview of that custom object within the agent workspace. So now let's say you've got an order. You as an admin would be able to define, hey, within the order field, there might be 40 fields, 50 fields that you have. These are the 10 fields, or these are the 15 fields that I want to show on my agent workspace when I want to get more details about this order. So there is a feature that we are working towards, and we're hoping to release it by this year. And that will enable our customers to get the context that they need and the context of their business data right within the agent workspace. So that's something that will really help you improve your agent's productivity.
Awesome. Thanks, Ashwin. So our next question is for you, Bailey, and that is, how can custom objects with triggers help with personalization?
So custom objects with triggers in Zendesk can greatly enhance personalization by allowing you to create tailored workflows and automate actions based on specific events or conditions, connecting with your customers' needs on a deeper level. So you can capture customer data to store and use beyond the standard ticket fields. You can create personalized experiences or interactions based on that customer data. The personalized interactions can help you foster relationships with your customers, and then you can automate workflows to ensure that the appropriate level of support is received. And all of these are just ways that any type of additional data that you're enriching your ticket with can really personalize the experience your customers have.
Thanks, Bailey. So our next question, and this is going to be for you, Peter. Can you share more about advanced data protection? What data restrictions capabilities are coming in the future as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is a great question. So advanced data protection is a new package. It's upcoming. We announced that at Relate. It's going to be offered soon in the second half of this year. And overall, it's meant to help support you in meeting your security and compliance obligations. And really, the value is to help you reduce overexposure of your data, identify risks and bad actors, and really protect your data with advanced encryption. So to start, the package is going to include access logs, which gives admins a detailed record of which agents were interacting with which data, when, and from what IP address. Access logs also is going to provide a record of what data agents were searching for. So there's that trail. We're going to be rolling more features into this package, including automatic data. Gives you more control over which types of data are deleted when. And then we're going to be releasing automatic redaction, which is a data restriction feature that's going to let you proactively block certain types of data from entering your data stores like email, phone, and other personally identifiable information. And then finally, advanced encryption will be added as well.
Excellent. Thanks, Peter. Our next question, I believe, is for you as well, or you again. What's coming for platform? I feel like we talked about this a little bit, but I think there's some nitty-gritty details we're going to be sharing in the moment.
Yeah. So we have touched on this quite a bit with sandboxes in the Q&A, so check that out. And then I just touched on the advanced data protection package. Since we're talking sandboxes and custom objects, we're also working with sandboxes on the ability to visualize changes that you make in a premium sandbox before you deploy them live, so that you can easily see what changes you're going to be making and compare those against your production environment. We're also going to be releasing the ability to roll back changes really easily. This came up in the Q&A a couple of times. The team's also working on the ability to automatically sync your sandbox in your live environment so that you don't need to refresh your sandbox when you want to bring updated data from your production environment into it. That's changed after you created the sandbox. And then for custom objects and triggers, we're going to be releasing the ability to execute triggers based on custom objects outside of the ticket. And so what this means is triggers aren't going to be limited to ticket workflows. You're going to be able to create custom workflows based on your custom objects, your unique data, right inside Zendesk. So you won't need to rely so much on integration to power those workflows. A couple of other features we have coming. We mentioned Data Importer, which is going to be a no-code tool to bring custom object and other data in CSV format into Zendesk.
Which is going to let you easily adapt out of the box Agent Workspace
layout to fit how your agents work. So lots of exciting stuff coming for platform.
Thanks, Peter. Real quick, April, I did see your question and your feedback as well. We do appreciate your feedback, and I believe Brett linked to our feedback forum. So if you do have any feedback, we definitely want to hear it. We also are going to be having a PM roundtable on Agent Workspace taking place in November. So if you do have feedback for that area of the product, we welcome you to attend that. It's sessions where we just listen to your feedback. So again, thanks for that feedback. Post it in the forums. Join us later in the year. We'd love to hear from you. But our next question is, how can we customize the data we capture in tickets for analysis/insights? Ashwin, I believe you have an answer for this, correct?
I do. Just wanted to call out, I'm not the product manager for Explore, but I have a decent sense of the feature, so I wanted to share what at least I have on this. You can customize the data that you capture in tickets based on what you want to set up. For example, if you want to set up a workflow around having a high priority tickets from VIP customers coming in through their messaging channel, you might want to apply VIP and messaging channel tags to those tickets. So tags in support are mapped to ticket field values, which is easier for you to report on rather than just tags. As far as analysis goes, for each workflow, you will have different metrics that you care about. In the VIP customer example, that might be things like first response time and one-touch resolution. To help you analyze common metrics like these, we have a list of simple recipes that can be really useful in setting up reports on some of these workflows that we're talking about. And we'll share that in the chat as well.
Thanks, Ashwin. All right, so our next question is, how do you set up ticket reports that are similar to the ones we receive for live chats? Ashwin, I think this one's for you as well, and I believe you have a few resources and a pretty good answer for this.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So you can set analytics and reports for all channels, not just chat. Chat is a legacy product, and so it has legacy analytics built into it. So three main analytics components that it has are already pre-built in our more recent omni-channel analytics solution included as part of the suite. The three main components are agent live reporting, 2 historic metrics, and 3 historic events. So for agent live reporting, we have a live data dashboard, which is the best way for you to check on agent activity, current capacity, and current state and capacity and all of that stuff, as well as real-time metrics across channels. So we'll share the first link with you on live agent reporting. 2, for historic metrics, we have chat datasets that include engagements and concurrency data at the agent level itself. And then finally, we have omni-channel datasets, which provide agent productivity data. And this feature is currently in EAP, which we're going to share a sign-up form for. So do check it out.
Awesome, thanks. And yeah, that sign-up form should be in the chat now. So if you want to go ahead and fill that out, we can get you into that EAP. But let's get through these last few questions. And our next one is, what are best practices for restricting data access for large groups? Peter, I believe this one's for you.
Yeah, great question. So the best practice here is to create private ticket groups. This is a Suite Enterprise feature. It's an advanced feature. It lets you give the right agents the right level of access to ticket data. So when you assign a ticket to a private group, only agents who are members of that group can see the contents of the ticket unless they're added as a requester, or they're CC'd, or they're a follower. Private ticket groups also prevent agents who are working on a private ticket from app mentioning or opening side conversations with team members who are outside of that private ticket group. We can drop a link in the chat where you can learn more about private ticket groups.
Thanks, Peter. Our next question, and we're down to our last couple of questions. So thanks everyone for the great submissions and the Q&A chat. We're going to be wrapping up shortly, but we do want to get these last ones out. And the next one is for you, Peter and Bailey. What are the best methods for tracking changes? We see a lot of people struggle with this, especially as they expand their depth within Zendesk.
Yeah, that's a great question. So one of the really powerful tools within Zendesk is the audit log. And the audit log is really a permanent record in the admin center of all the changes that have been made in your account. So changes to account information, settings, users, apps, business rules. And each audit log entry shows information like the time and the date that the change was made, as well as which user made it. So we can drop a link here about the audit log where you can get the basics on that. But that's a really powerful tool. And I'll pass it to Bailey to talk about tracking changes with triggers.
Yeah, so from the triggers side, you have the revision history to help track changes to individual triggers. This enables you to see who made the change, when the change was made, and what changed, as well as how it differs from what's currently implemented. Another option is to view the trigger that made a specific change from the ticket event log. From the ticket events view, you can select the name of the trigger and then navigate to the trigger that executed on that ticket. So these are both ways to track changes at a more granular level from the trigger side of the world.
Thanks, Peter. Thanks, Bailey. I think we're actually moving to our last question. And that is, why would a company develop a custom app on Zendesk? This was one we didn't want to miss, and we have a pretty robust response for this.
This is a great question. So to start, Zendesk already has the app marketplace that has over 1,200 pre-built apps that you can choose from. For the most part, these apps address common use cases that many companies and teams would have, but sometimes there are really unique needs that a team and company have, and they want to have a more custom, or as Devin would say, bespoke solution. And so this is the situation where you might want to develop a custom app. So system integration is a really common example. Let's say you have to integrate Zendesk with an external system that there isn't a pre-built app for, either because maybe the other system is one that has been built in-house at your company, or because an app just hasn't been developed for it yet. Another situation with integration is there is an app for the system that you want to integrate with, but the app doesn't sync the specific data or automate the specific tasks that you need it to within Zendesk. It just doesn't work quite the way that you need it to. So in both of these cases, it would be a good idea to look at custom